Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Turning Readers into Writers with me, your host, Emma Dhesi. And I'm excited to be talking to you today about how you can use the philosophy of one of my favourite she's a business person, but she's mostly known for her money mindset work that she does, helping women to get more at ease with how they think and feel and work with money. Because I know it's a very emotive subject for a lot of people, including myself, it has to be said. And I think it's something that doesn't go away. It's something that we always keep. It's a relationship that we're always having to work on, how we feel about money, not just the spending of money, but also the receiving of money. So if you're to sell your books, how will you feel about receiving money? And then also, how we save or spend the money that we've got, and the sort of upbringing that we've had and the beliefs we have around money. It's fascinating stuff. If you haven't discovered Denise Duffield Thomas yet, I really recommend going to find her. Her website is denisedt.com, and I will link to her in the show notes. But I was listening to a podcast episode of hers last week or the week before, and she's talking about, she talks to people who are in business. So I'm a business person. I have my coaching business. So if you wanted to work with me to write your book, I'm here and able to do that. I also publish and sell books. So I have a business on that side as well. So she's talking a lot to her main audience are business entrepreneurs. However, when I was listening to the podcast, I wish to the life of me I could remember exactly which podcast it was and I would direct you to it. But I just took down some notes, and I really thought her philosophy towards building a business, building an online platform, building a community were really, really relevant to us writers, and we could do a lot worse than take heed of what she's sharing. So there was three sort of things that I took away from what Denise was saying. And the first one, and this is a big one of hers, is to say, you're not the guru, you're a contributor. I think this is so useful in kind of all ways of life, not just in business. But just that, taking the pressure off yourself and remembering that you are not, as a novelist, as a writer, whether you're writing fiction or non-fiction actually, you're not the expert. You are not the person who knows everything. You do not have to be the guru. So even as I'm sharing advice with you and my own philosophy about how I write and sort of set up my writing life, that's the way that I do it. And all I can do is share what I have learned and what I know and what I've observed in other people. That doesn't mean that it's absolutely the only way to do things. And it's the same with our writing, the way that we write. We can write anything that we want. We're a contributor in this wonderful world of fiction. We are offering up our stories to be part of something bigger. We don't need to be the best wordsmith that ever was out there. We don't need to be the best storyteller or the biggest bestseller out there. We just need to be a contributor. We just need to be part of the conversation. And actually, it reminds me of one of my writing teachers, Stephanie Han. I had the good fortune to work with her when I lived in Hong Kong. We were both living on the same island in Hong Kong, and I took some classes with her. And one of the most impactful things that I learned from her, or that she helped me realize, was that my stories are bigger than me. Your stories are bigger than you. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. And I think that this was the first time I really understood what was meant by that phrase, standing on the shoulders of giants. And it means that I am part of this, and you are too. We are part of this tradition of storytelling that goes way back that goes way back to the campfires around the caves that we were or were not living in. It goes back to the Saxon roundhouses that people were living in. It goes back to the teepee Native American Indians are sitting around. It goes back to the Mongolian steppes. It goes back to Shakespeare. It goes back to Charles Dickens, to Jane Austen, to all of those classics that have kind of come up along the way, and we get to sit on top of those. So now we get to think about more modern writers. We get to think about our Stephen Kings and our James Pattersons and our Hilary Mantels and our Margaret Atwoods and our J.K. Rowlings and our Enid Blytons and Jacqueline Wilson and Judy Blume and all of these writers who have come before us. We get to stand on their shoulders. We get to be part of something that they have been a part of. They have passed down this tradition, what they've tried, what they've learned, the stories that they've written, and we have taken from all of those the things that have resonated with us, meant something to us, been important to us. And now as writers, even though we don't realise it, we've absorbed all of these stories through osmosis, and now we are putting them into the blend that is us, and then sending them out into the world as our stories. And then hopefully, well, I know that there's going to be people coming after us. So we get to stand on those people and look down at this giant, what I envisage to be this giant, enormous human pyramid that just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. And if we look down, somewhere down there, we will see Shakespeare. Somewhere down there we will see Dickens. We'll see all the greats. We'll see Chekhov. We'll see all the people that we have loved and admired over the years. And then, we can imagine who we are seeing above us and who is yet to come. I have a daughter who she's only 9 at the moment, but she loves storytelling, loves writing, loves reading. I'm hoping that she will stand on my shoulders one day and will tell stories as well. Actually, just as I stood on my mother's shoulders, she was a storyteller, is a storyteller as well. So we're all part and parcel of this. We're all contributors. We're not the gurus. We're not the people who know everything. And I've mentioned Shakespeare a few times, and don't forget, he took his stories from the Greeks and from the more ancient stories that came before him. We all borrow from each other, and we all contribute in our own little way. We take it into the mix of our minds, work some magic in our imagination, and then we spill it onto the page, and we let people read it and decide for themselves whether they like it. So I really, really, really want you to kind of hear that you don't have to be perfect in this. You don't have to be the guru. You just write what you know and you share what you know to the best of your ability, and it's up to the reader whether they like it or not. So that is the first thing that I really enjoyed from Denise's podcast episode. The second thing I really liked, and which actually follows on from the idea of, you're not going to be perfect. Nothing is ever going to be, no book, no story, no poem, no anything is ever perfect. There's always going to be somebody who perceives it as being perfect. For them, it is the most magical thing, but there are going to be other people who perceive the same story, the same poem, the same play as being very imperfect. They still enjoy it. There's still a lot that they take away from it, and they would read and enjoy more from that same author, but they don't think it's perfect. And that's because nothing ever is. Nothing is perfect. And what Denise was saying is, do you know what? It's better to take messy action. And I've heard this from a number of my business coaches, done is better than perfect. Take messy action. And it's really just encouraging us to get started, to get going with it. Stop waiting for the time to be right, for the conditions to be right, for a period in your life where you think everything is going to be all lined up, ready for you to start writing your book. Because that will never happen, It's never going to be the perfect time. You're never going to have this perfect moment. And if you do have this perfect moment, it's going to be very brief. Because life is like that, isn't it? It's going to be very brief. So don't wait for that. Just take that messy action. And that might mean, grabbing a bit of time to write a couple of times a week, and it's only 15 or 20 minutes at a time. Maybe when you do have that time, you're not sitting down to write perfect prose. You are maybe dictating some notes in your voice messaging, in your voice app, of ideas that you've got, or a conversation that you envisage two of your characters happening. Or maybe you can just take some time to sketch out the whole story as you think it might go. You know, if you're a plotter, then start with that big picture sketch. You know, what's the beginning, what's the middle, what's the end? And then little by little you can go in and fill in all those gaps. If you're a pantser, you know, just delve in. You don't have to start at chapter 1. You can be a patchwork writer and you can just delve in wherever the story takes you, you know, wherever you're feeling the passion or the muse or the moment, whatever scene that you are feeling inspired to write, just go for it. Take that messy action. Do not wait for it to be perfect, because if you wait for that that plot that you've been working on for so long to be absolutely bulletproof, there's nothing you've forgotten, everything is accounted for and taken care of, you're going to be waiting a long time, because you're a creative. You're always going to be having new ideas. There's always going to be something new that comes to you and you think, that would be great in the story, I must add this into the story. And so your plots, you know, the plan that you're making for this particular book is going to go on and on and on and on. And if you're a pantser, you know, maybe you're waiting until you've carved out the most perfect character, that's what you're waiting for, so that you know everything about that character. Or, you know, you're doing a little too much pre-work. Yes, pre-work is hugely important, but there does come a point where you have to say, okay, I've done enough thinking for now. I need to delve in and start writing, whatever that might look like. And let's be honest, our first drafts are messy. It's going to look messy. We need it to be messy. We need to kind of throw that clay on the table and see what comes out. So we need it to be messy. So the second thing I took from Denise's podcast episode was, it's never going to be perfect. You've just got to take messy action and go with it and see where it takes you. And I promise you, it will take you in some lovely and some surprising places. And then the third thing that I took from Denise's podcast, I really think resonates with a lot of you out there who are really kind of, you know, really feeling that imposter syndrome come into play, really feeling that you don't belong in the writing space, who really feel that maybe you don't have anything to say, or if you do have something to say, you don't have the right education, that you've maybe not finished high school or secondary school, you've maybe not gone to college or university, you've maybe not written anything before, and so you're feeling like you are an outsider, that you don't belong, and you would be foolish to even try. But the question that Denise was asking us was, you know, nobody can stop you writing. Only you. You're the only person who can stop yourself from doing these things. And, you know, it's easy for us to look around our lives and say, I've got kids, I've got a job, I've got family members I look after, my friends and family don't get it, they don't understand me, they don't support me. It's easy to say those things, and I know that those things exist, but ultimately, when it absolutely comes down to it, nobody can stop you writing except you. I think there's an Eleanor Roosevelt quote that's kind of similar to this. You know, sort of saying that you are the only person getting in your way. That's going to bug me now. I'm going to have to just pause recording and I go and find that quote. I found it, thankfully. Eleanor Roosevelt said, or is said to have said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And I appreciate that's easier, you know, depending on the relationships you've got with people around you, that's easier said than done. But at its heart, it is absolutely true. Nobody can make you feel any particular way unless you let them. So it's the same for our writing. Nobody can stop you writing unless you let them. And the question really that you need to be asking, and really try and reframe this for yourself, is not who do I think I am to be trying this, or who am I to even think that I can do this, but really to ask yourself the question, well, why not me? Why shouldn't I be the one to do this? Why shouldn't I be the first person in my family to write a story? Why shouldn't I be as able to write a good story as the next person? So really try and rethink that. Why not you? What is it that you think is at its heart stopping you from doing it? Not the extraneous stuff that we all deal with and we all tell ourselves and we can't do it, but really, what is going on inside of you that's stopping you from being able to write this? And when you start asking that question of yourself, really asking, what is it you are saying to yourself? What is it that you believe about yourself that isn't true, quite frankly, isn't true? And even for people who are in difficult situations and are finding life a bit tough and maybe just feel that they're surviving, writing, journaling, writing these stories down about your life, they can be a way of helping you survive. These can be such useful tools. Think about the stories, the memoirs that we see written, that people have written about their lives when they've been through tough times, and then changing that into fiction. Great, that is where a lot of great stories are, and that's where we learn a lot. When we read about the challenges that people are having, whether they be fiction or real, that's where we learn as the reader. That's where we learn. That's how we get to understand what it might be like to be in another situation, in another person's shoes. And it's how we sort of share that love. Oh my goodness, that sounds a bit much, doesn't it? But it's about sharing that love and that compassion and that empathy with our readers. And so no matter what situation you're in, you have a story to tell. You are just as entitled as anybody else to have a go and ask that question, why not me? So I hope this has been useful. Let me just recap the 3 things that Denise was sharing with us. The first one is to remember you're not the guru, you're contributing. And if you can envisage that human pyramid, that I envisage, that if you look down far enough, you're gonna see Ovid, you're gonna see my goodness, you'll even see the people who wrote the Bible, you will see Shakespeare, you will see all of those people. So you are standing on the shoulders of giants and you can contribute. You don't need to be the guru. The second thing she talks about is, it's never going to be perfect. But what's more important is that you take messy action, that you get started. You can always tweak and improve later on, but the most important thing in terms of us as writers is getting that first draft down. So don't wait for perfection. It's never going to come. I'll just say that again. Perfection will never come. You've just got to get started. Throw that clay down on the table and get molding. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself. And then thirdly, just know that nobody can stop you from writing but you. You are in charge of your future. You are in charge of your creativity and how you spend your time. And if you have to sort of eke those little times out, then so be it. That's the way it is, but you can do it. And the question that you need to ask yourself is, why not me? So I hope, some of this will give you some food for thought. I hope it will help you reframe your writing and take away some of that feeling of imposter syndrome and that you've got to have everything perfect, because that is not the way of life, as we all know. So listen, if you have been enjoying my podcast so far, if you find it useful, I would really, really appreciate it if you would be so kind as to subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, it'd be wonderful if you could leave a rating, and even more wonderful if you could leave just a short review to say whether you've enjoyed the show or not, if you find it useful, if it keeps you motivated and helps you stay writing as you go along. That would be wonderful, and you can do that wherever you get your podcasts. So that's all for now, and I'll see you next week. Happy writing.